National Assembly of Nicaragua approved the law for defense of the right of the people to independence, sovereignty, and self-determination for peace. In the United States, health authorities began the Moderna vaccination program against COVID-19. In India, rural workers continue to strike against recently enacted agricultural laws. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. In an extraordinary session, the National Assembly of Nicaragua approved on Monday the law for the defense of the rights of the people to independence, sovereignty, and self-determination for peace that aims to defend the constitutional principle of independence, sovereignty, and national self-determination, as well as the non-interference in the internal affairs of the Nicaraguan people. After the passing of the law, any Nicaraguan charged with the treason against the country will not be able to run for the presidential office. The official party deputy said that this law is coherent with the current constitution. The vice president of the country, Rosario Murillo, explained the importance of this new law. Nicaraguans who lead up or finance a coup, who alter the constitutional order, who encourage or urge terrorist acts, who carry out acts that undermine independence, sovereignty, and self-determination, who incite foreign interference in the affairs internal, ask for military interventions, those who demand, exalt, and applaud the imposition of sanctions against the state of Nicaragua and all the citizens, and all those who harm the supreme interests of the nation contemplated in the legal system, will be traitors to the homeland, for which they will not be able to run for positions of popular election, this without prejudice of the corresponding criminal actions established in the Penal Code of the Republic of Nicaragua for acts of treason. And this Monday in Ecuador, public sector teachers mobilized to demand the fulfillment of several demands to the government. The teachers started the day from the government headquarters in Quito to the Ministry of Education. Among the requests were to re-establish the face-to-face classes and demand more attention from the state. Authorities announced that at least 17,000 teachers have not received government funding since the beginning of the pandemic. Political organizations of the Venezuelan opposition call on the new parliament to work together to overcome the economic blockade imposed by foreign powers. The leadership of the Solutions for Venezuela's party said that it will continue the work for the benefit of the people and reiterated its commitment to reactivate the lines of political action and the commitment to change for the country, claiming that their political struggle is in favor of the sovereignty of the people and out of patriotism. Leader Claudio Fermín demanded the lifting of the economic blockade imposed by foreign powers and advocated for the freedom of trade.
We are committed in the fight against the economic blockade. Venezuela demands freedom of trade. That is a right that we as Venezuelans have. And anyone that attempts against freedom of trade are stabbing Venezuela's welfare. All the world powers that are in favor of the economic blockade are attacking all Venezuelans, and Venezuelans in favor of the economic blockade are acting against the country's best interests.
In Chile, the Coordinating Assembly of Secondary Students, together with social organizations, marched to the Department of Educational Evaluation, Measurement and Registration to demand universal access to higher education free of charge. The members of the Coordinating Assembly indicated that the proposals that were issued time before for the benefit of the students have not been enforced, and in response to these demands, the government implemented the transition test, which maintained the selection process. The student organization also rejected the actions of Minister Raúl Figueroa after allegedly spending hundreds of millions of dollars on a commercial. The student organization also said that they will continue to mobilize as long as the executive does not offer answers to the demands. In Brazil, authorities seized a large lot of illegal wood extracted from the Amazon, the largest lot in history. Our correspondent Ignacio Lemus reported that at least 131,000 cubic meters were confiscated. Lemus also said that some 43,700 trees have been cut down on the Pará and the Amazon state's border. Experts and environmentalists made several statements blaming the government of Jair Bolsonaro for weakening environmental control agencies. And the Canadian tour operator Holasun's Holidays and Air Canada are set to resume flights to Cuba to boost operations amid the COVID-19 pandemic. On Saturday, Holasun Holidays, in alliance with the airline Off We Go, performed their inaugural flight to the international airport Abel Santa Maria, located in Santa Clara province. Besides the regular flights to Varadero and Cayo Santa Maria, tourist hotspots, Off We Go will add routes to Cayo Encenachos and Cayo Las Brujas. Likewise, Air Canada started flights to Cayo Santa Maria on Sunday, thus adding a new tourist destination on the island. All the operations developed in observance of the health and sanitary protocols. The United States National Weather Service said early Monday that Kilauea volcano on Hawaii's Big Island erupted and shot a steam cloud into the atmosphere that lasted about an hour. According to the U.S. Geological Survey, the eruption began late Sunday within the Halema-Humau crater. The volcano is located within Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Tom Burchard, a senior forecaster with the National Weather Service in Hawaii, said a new lava flow interacted with a pool of water inside the crater, and that led to a short-lived but a fairly vigorous eruption. Kilauea erupted in 2018, destroying more than 700 homes and spewing enough lava to fill 320,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. An area of more than half the size of Manhattan was buried in up to 24 meters of now hardened lava. And we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away.
A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto en él.
Dot in the I. Saturday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. In the United States, health authorities began the vaccination program against COVID-19 with the Moderna drug across the country. The first Moderna inoculations come after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration announced late Friday that it had granted emergency approval for the vaccine. It also comes exactly a week after the U.S., the country hardest hit by the coronavirus pandemic, began administering the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. The Moderna vaccine can be stored at minus 20 degrees Celsius, much lower than Pfizer's vaccine, which must be stored at minus 70 degrees Celsius, making it easier to distribute. To this date, the U.S. registers more than 18.2 million COVID-19 cases and nearly 325,000 fatalities.
This week, we have allocated more doses of the Pfizer vaccine, approximately 2 million more doses, for states and other jurisdictions to order. On top of that, we've allocated 5.9 million doses of the Moderna vaccine. I look forward to receiving this vaccine myself in the coming days as part of our efforts to demonstrate to Americans that these vaccines are safe and incredibly effective at preventing COVID-19. This first wave of Moderna shipments will be sent to more than 3,500 sites, a greater number than the Pfizer vaccine was sent to, in part because the Moderna vaccine can be accommodated in more sites, including harder to reach and more rural places.
And the United States President-elect Joe Biden received his first dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine on live television on Monday, in keeping with public officials' efforts to show Americans such vaccines are safe. Other top politicians, like the current Vice President Mike Pence, the Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, and Mitch McConnell, the Republican Senate Majority Leader, received doses on Friday. Such efforts to show the inoculations are safe are increasingly important, given recent data on American attitudes toward COVID-19 vaccine. While half of Americans said they will take the vaccine, according to a recent poll, 1/4 of adults said they will not, while another quarter said they weren't sure. Also on Monday, the first shot of the Moderna vaccine will be given, prompting new hope in a nation which has suffered more coronavirus fatalities and cases than any other countries. By publicizing their injections and showing no adverse reactions, they hope to stem a rising tide of skepticism about vaccine safety and efficacy. Donald Trump has been absent from these public campaigns, while remained out of the public eye, while continuing to challenge Biden's victory on presidential elections. Trump, who has expressed misinformation about vaccine safety, has not disclosed when he would get his first dose. The United Kingdom government's chief scientific advisor suggested on Monday that coronavirus restrictions across the country could be tightened on the coming weeks.
I will say that the evidence on this virus is it spreads easily, it's more transmissible. We absolutely need to make sure we've got the right level of restrictions in place. I think it is likely that this will grow in numbers of the variant across the country. And I think it's likely, therefore, that measures need to be increased in some places in due course, not reduced. So I think it is a case that this will spread more.
And Sweden on Monday announced it was barring travelers from neighboring Denmark after a new mutation of the coronavirus, first seen in the UK, was reported also in the country.
The new mutated virus has also been confirmed in Denmark and some other countries. But Denmark has also had an increased spread lately and elected to close down, for example, all shopping malls during Christmas and the holidays. There is an obvious risk that Danes will be tempted to cross over to Sweden to shop for Christmas presents or spend time in Malmö, for instance. Therefore, the government has also decided on a travel ban from Denmark to Sweden.
And Zheng Songwei, the head of China's Vaccine Research and Development Team of the Joint Prevention and Control Mechanism of the State Council, said Monday the data obtained from each phase proved the safety and effectiveness of the Chinese COVID-19 vaccines.
Nearly 1 million emergency vaccinations carried out by China fully shows that Chinese vaccines are very safe. Some of the people who got vaccinated have had some adverse reactions, but there has been no serious ones. Meanwhile, in the process of our emergency vaccinations, more than 60,000 people who were vaccinated have traveled to high-risk areas outside the country, and so far there's been no serious infection. This also proves that our vaccines have a protective effect.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo corro. keep myself healthy, I study.
Για να διατηρηθώ υγιής, τρέφομαι σωστά.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo bailo.
Para mantenerme saludable, yo purifico mi espíritu a través del cuerpo. ¿Y tú?
Guide your body. Tuesdays, only on teleSUR. teleSUR English presents a weekly program to discuss the political, economic and social issues affecting the Caribbean community. We'll challenge stereotypes and impact the diversity of the region through the analysis of unique cultures, religions and art. We Caribbean. Wednesdays, only on teleSUR. A review of the world news that investigates, incites analysis and induces criticism, because every event has a context.
Pusimos el punto net.
Dot in the I. Saturday, only on teleSUR.
Welcome back to From the South. Thousands of rural workers continue to occupy key highways leading to India's capital, New Delhi, in protest against recently enacted agricultural laws. The blockade of highways that has now entered its fourth week is obstructing transportation. Farmers fear the government will stop buying grain at minimum guaranteed prices, and corporations will then push prices down. Some are even writing letters in their blood, asking India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to repeal all three newly enacted laws. The protesting rural workers say the laws will lead to the cartelization and commercialization of agriculture and make farmers vulnerable to corporate greed. Nearly 60% of India's population depends on agriculture for their livelihoods.
So our economy is crumbling down, we don't have funds. So that's why blood is only thing left for us to give it to the government. Because government shouldn't have brought such controversial laws, especially when there's COVID hitting so hard and the economy is trying to jump back in. And these laws are all about helping the corporates rather than helping out the people that are actually sowing the seeds, like the farmers.
India said on Monday it was joining other countries in temporarily suspending all flights from Britain after the emergence of a new and more infectious strain of coronavirus there. India's aviation ministry made the announcement on its Twitter account. The banning of flights will come into effect on Tuesday and will last till December 31st, 2020. The aviation ministry also said that passengers arriving from Britain on transit flights will be subject to a mandatory RT-PCR test on arrival. To this date, India reports over 10 million coronavirus infections, the second highest in the world after the United States, and more than 145,000 fatalities. More than a dozen European nations have already banned flights and travelers from Britain, with more expected to take action. And South Africa announced that a new variant of the COVID-19 virus is driving the current resurgence of the disease, with higher numbers of confirmed cases, hospitalizations and fatalities. According to health officials and scientists leading the country's virus strategy, the new variant, known as 501.V2, is dominant among new confirmed infections in South Africa's current wave. The new strain, different from the one in Britain, appears to be more infectious than the original virus. South African scientists are studying if the vaccines against COVID-19 will also offer protection against the new strain. In response to the resurgence of COVID-19, the South African government has introduced tougher lockdown restrictions in areas identified as hotspots. So far, the nation registers nearly 922,000 infections and more than 24,600 deaths. Central African President Faustin Archange Touadéra said he condemns those engaged in the path of violence and called on citizens to go to the polls on December 27th for presidential and legislative elections.
What we deplore, what we condemn, is that the people, instead of entering the process so that we can have peace, the democratic framework, now that we have regained constitutional order, we must maintain that order for democracy in the country. But unfortunately, there are some who are engaged in path of violence that the people condemn and that we condemn. There is no institutional crisis. We simply have to go to elections. So for me today, like for most Central Africans, we have to go to the polls on the 27th. I see people lining up everywhere to pick up their voter registration, and that shows their commitment, their willingness to go to the polls.
Israel on Monday began vaccinating its population above the age of 60, expanding its coronavirus vaccination drive. Israel plans to vaccinate some 60,000 people per day as part of its vaccination campaign. It said it has secured vaccine doses from both Pfizer and Moderna for much of its population of 9 million. The country's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, President Reuven Rivlin, and other leaders also received the shot as a way to encourage Israelis to also get vaccinated. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.